Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates. Welcome back to Safiyya Traders Bookstore's weekly book introductions, reviews series. This is Sammil. Social Justice in Islam. Social Justice in Islam, written by Sayyid Qutb. We have already published 2 parts regarding social justice in Islam in our YouTube channel. The first part being a prelude, and the second part more or less an introduction. This week, that is the third part, has to do with the first chapter of the book. So we are virtually in the threshold of the chapters contained in the book. So my take is going to be the same, and I will try to explain briefly and to the point the first chapter of this book, that is religion and society in Christianity and in Islam. In the Muslim world as a whole, we as Muslims, we pay a little heed to our own spiritual resources and our own intellectual heritage. Instead, we think first of importing foreign principles and methods, or borrowing laws and customs from across the deserts and from beyond the seas. It is apparent that our social conditions have no possible relation to justice. So therefore, we turn our eyes to Europe, America or Russia, and we expect to import from their solutions to our problems, just as from them we import goods for our industrial livelihood. We cast aside our own fundamental principles and doctrines, and we bring in those of democracy or socialism or communism. Even though people like us, we are living in India, we are fully aware that democracy, the Western democracy, can do justice to people who are in need, can't assure or guarantee the fundamental rights of the citizens. If the hands of bureaucrats or top politicians, decision makers, the big shots are involved, people are denied justice. We have been experiencing that, and independent quote-unquote independent institutions like the judiciary, the income tax department, the investigative agencies, the narcotics control bureau, how these independent institutions are acting virtually as agents of the executive. So we bring in those of democracy, communism or socialism, knowing fully well that these systems, these set of principles, or we may call it ideologies, can do justice, can ensure or guarantee justice to those who are in need. It is to these that we look for a solution or solutions to our social problems. Although our circumstances, our history, the very basis of our life, be it material, spiritual or intellectual alike, the very basis of our life are quite out of keeping with the circumstances of the people from across the desert and from beyond the seas. We have divorced our faith from our practical life, condemning it to remain in ideal isolation with no jurisdiction over life, no connection with its affairs, and no remedy for its problems. For as the popular saying goes, religion concerns only a man and his God. But as for the ordinary relationships, the bonds of the society, the problems of life, and the political or economic theory, religion has nothing to do with these things, nor they with it. This is the view of those who are not actively hostile to religion. As for the others, their reaction is make no mention of religion here. Religion is nothing but a opiate employed by the plutocrats and the despots to drug the working classes and to paralyze the unfortunate masses. So how have we arrived at this strange view of the nature and history of Islam? We have imported it as we import every other things from across the desert and from beyond the seas. As far Christianity is concerned, Christianity grew up in the shadow of the Roman Empire at a time period when Judaism was suffering an eclipse, when it had become a system of rigid and lifeless ritual and an empty and unspiritual sham. So the Roman Empire had its own laws, rules and regulations, which still remains as an origin for the modern European legislation. So therefore Christianity had no need then, nor had it the power to put before a powerful Roman Empire united laws, rules and regulations for the government or for the society. Rather, its need was to devote its power to moral and spiritual purification, and its concern was to correct the stereotyped ritual and the empty sham of ceremonial Judaism, and to restore life and spirit to the Israelite conscience. To be more precise, Christianity forgot about render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. Rather, it turned its full strength towards spiritual purity and pious discipline. It took its stand upon the ground that religion concerns only a man and his God, while the temporal laws are concerned with the relationship between an individual and the state. This was all the more natural when Christianity grew up in the embrace of the Roman Empire, and since it was a reaction against Judaism. So consequentially, it left society to the state to be governed by its earthly laws. Since too its society has to do with outer and temporal world, whereas faith had its realm in the soul and conscience. Christianity then crossed the seas to Europe, taking with it all its sublimity and purity and denial, out and out denial of the material world. And in Europe, it met the Romans, inheritors of the pagan and material culture of Greece. And also it met other peoples of the remoter parts of Europe, its first contact with the barbarian world. I mean, these were people of immense numbers fighting bitterly over their narrow territories, ruthless and merciless in nature, mean and selfish in outlook. I mean, none of them could put their weapons, none of them could put his weapons for a minute, nor could they find time in the struggle of life for the speculations of Christianity, this unselfish, excessively self-denying faith. Such people early saw that religion was of no profit to life, and they concluded that religion concerns only a man and his God. So accordingly, they found it natural to seek refuge of religion while they were in the church, and to breathe its air in its sanctuary, and after to return back to the battle of life with all their barbarian customs. So therefore they settled their quarrels with the judgment of their sword, or on occasion with that of the local law, and religion was left in pious isolation to deal only with the heart and the conscience in the holy sanctuary and in the confessional. Hence arose that division between religion and the world in the life of Europe. It was under these circumstances and because of the despots and religious tyrants that this saying arose that religion is the opiate of the masses. For it was thus that it happened in Europe. Then came the age of Renaissance, and the church was quick to perceive the threat to its power, which must result from the enfranchisement of the mind and sense after the Dark Ages. So therefore the church set itself in opposition, striving to muzzle freedom of thought and freedom of speech, which contradicted its ancient and threadbare doctrines. So from that time onwards, there has been a bitter hostility between the church and the free speech and free thought. For the church was unwilling to limit itself to the spiritual affairs, which are the true sphere of Christianity. Nor was it willing to hold sway merely over the world to come, the hereafter world, as is the claim of the papacy. So its doctrines have come into conflict with those of science on such matters as the world, the universe, and the nature of existence. So in the passage of time, there have grown up generations of scientists and thinkers who dislike and despise church. They have in their hearts this hostility and loathing for the church and the churchmen. Hence has arisen this active hostility between religion and science, between the church and the intellectual world in the life of Europe. And with the advance of time, capital increased, and in the arena of industry there appeared two sharply divided camps, that of capital and that of labor. Now the real authority had passed from the hands of the state to those of the capitalists. Since the church had no chance of sharing the authority, it joined itself to the capitalist camp. So now there are these self-seekers from among the European churchmen who want only power and devoted themselves for its accusation. They draw from the religion an opiate for the masses of workers to restrain them from revolution in search of their rights, or to wean them away from the pursuit of justice in this world by the promise of compensation in the next world.